Confession, I need to update my portfolio. Like most designers, it has been a hot minute since I have actually tackled it. I've got a backlog of fresh projects to add, and it's starting to hit the point that it doesn't feel quite right anymore. I'm a graphic designer, but it doesn't really matter if you're an illustrator or photographer or fine artist. Whatever kind of a creative you are, the endless portfolio struggle is real, and every time it can kind of feel like a therapy session. Who are you really? Is your work good enough to be put out there? Are you good enough to be put out there? How do you want to present yourself to the world? Will anyone even care? This is kind of haunting stuff. This will be the 8th portfolio design I've done in the last 2 decades. The first one was in 2008 when I was a junior at Pratt, and I did it on Flash. Oof. At this point, I'm pretty clear on who I am as a designer, who my audience is, and what I like in a portfolio. So this isn't going to be a gut job, it's going to be more of a refresh. That got me thinking about portfolios, and I realized that I have a few big insights and a few specific tricks that have made a big difference for me along the way as I go about tackling this process again. So you might also be wrestling with the never-ending question of when and how to update. So I thought today we could have a little chat about all things portfolio. So I'm going to break this down into 2 parts. Today, we're going to go over a couple of things. First, how do you know when it's actually time to press the button and when that itch to redesign is actually just procrastination? Then I'm going to go over different types of portfolio presentation, the 4 different goals every portfolio has and why they need different strategies, and the best ways to showcase your work depending on your goals. If you like this kind of content, then go ahead and subscribe because in the next video in the series, I'm going to dive into tackling my own portfolio and I'll take you along. Also, I made a little flowchart checklist for yourself so you can follow along to decide if it's time for you to actually update or not. So if you want that, it's free. It's on my website. Go download it if you want to follow along and kind of work this out for yourself. All right, let's dive in. I think the question is always to redesign or not to redesign. And I think depending on your personality and wiring and what you have going on, it can be hard to allocate time for this because it's not a paying thing, but it can also start feeling like this looming thing that means that you can't move on to do other stuff because you don't have something to represent you. And sometimes it's helpful to actually sit down and just answer a few questions to say, is it actually worth taking the time to do? So the first question is, do you currently have one? If you don't actually have any kind of portfolio that you own the domain to, beyond just like having stuff on Instagram or on Behance, I would say that it's time to go ahead and do the work and just put your stuff somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect, but having a place that you own on the internet is really important. Have you updated it in the last 1 to 2 years? That's usually a pretty good benchmark. If it's been 5 years, it's probably time to take a look. If it's been 6 months, you're probably good. I think the most crucial question for me is this one. When it comes up in conversation or someone asks to see your work, do you cringe internally or make an excuse, or do you proudly hand over the URL? Because if that answer is no, I think it's time to take a look. The other question is, do you get a steady stream or trickle of inquiries coming in from your website? Whether that's face-to-face meetings that get sent there, people find you on socials or other places, but they're coming to your website, seeing your work, and then contacting you. If it's total crickets, then it might be time to update. Do you have a lot of recent work piled up that isn't on your website? Do you have a lot of old work on your website that you feel like doesn't really represent you or what you want to be doing anymore? Do you have a clear enough call to action so that people actually know what to do and how to get in touch with you to work with you? Do you have a clear enough explanation of how you work and what you offer and how someone works with you that it removes confusion? And finally, does looking at your portfolio feel like meeting you? There are so many people in the design space, but there's only one you, and you need to give enough of an idea of who you are and what you have to offer that someone can see it and want to work with you. So those are just some of the questions that you should be asking yourself in this process. I actually listed a few more in my little checklist if you want to really dive down into this process. Let's assume for now that the answer is yes, and we're going to dive into portfolio making. All right, so we're settled that we want to either make or remake our portfolio, right? How do you even decide where to go from there? I'm not going to dive into hosting platforms and building methods in this video because that is just a whole other can of fish. Happy to make that video if you want to. So let me know in the comments if you want to know my favorite places to build portfolios and different ones I would suggest for different types of people. But I think it's helpful to be thinking about what visual style of portfolio you like because there's actually a lot of different ones. I would say there's kind of 4 visual styles of portfolio. There's what I would call an infinite scroll, which is one main page scrolling through with a lot of visuals all on the spot that just keeps on going, a sort of dumping ground of all of your images. This is good if you maybe are an illustrator with a really similar style, or a photographer that you want them to be able to quickly gather and get a sense of who you are and browse through your whole body of work. Simple. An upgrade from that might be what I would call content galleries. So it's the same kind of idea, but you would break it up into different categories. So maybe you design for bands and you have posters and t-shirts and merch. They can search for each of those and then scroll through and see all of your individual one-offs. This is good if you have a few different mediums that you work in or styles of work, but the individual things that you're making don't require a lot of explanation or needing to click in to see a lot of other additional photos of them. It can also be cool if you do a lot of motion because you can put a lot of moving images in one spot and have like a really dynamic scroll. Thirdly, you would have what I would call project walkthroughs, which is where I tend to fall. So each individual project gets its own page. On that page, you can kind of do whatever you want. You can have as many images or video pieces, text, explanations as you want. It can go on as long as you want to, and you can kind of tell the visual story of each individual project, and then they can scroll through. I think this is usually good for anyone who has a larger explanation for each individual thing. Even if that's that I'm a muralist, I want to be able to have 15 images of my mural and give concept art and behind the scenes and a little bit of a brief, then this is your way to go. The most in-depth option would be case studies, and this tends to be for projects that are maybe a little bit more abstract. Maybe the end result wasn't just a lot of visuals that you can show with photos, but you need to give a little bit more of an explanation about what the project was, what the problem was, how you dealt with it, more of the back and forth. They tend to be more text-heavy, give more facts about what the thing you solved was. Maybe you have stats about what you helped someone with, and it tends to walk through the process of working with one client or one project all the way through a little bit more detailed. I think people are used to thinking about case studies as a different kind of thing, so it can be a little wordier and a little bit more abstract. So once you settle on the visual style that's going to work for the kind of work that you do, the biggest question you have to ask is, what's your end goal? I have a whole video on the 4 different career paths within design. I go into way more detail about what your different options are, both getting hired and getting clients, and specific suggestions about what to put in your portfolios for each of those things. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this here, but I think you have to start with your end goal so you know what kind of work you need to be showing. Do you want to get hired by an agency or a studio in a particular design niche? Then you need to show depth. Make projects that show off the skill set that a designer at your level would need to have in order to be appealing to that kind of person. Put in work that specifically relates to that area of interest or that niche so that you're really attractive to those people. Be as specific as you possibly can. Do you want to get hired as an in-house designer at a larger company? Then you need to show breadth. You want to show off a lot of different skill sets to show how well-rounded you are and how you're able to work with one brand across a lot of different mediums. You could have fewer projects, but have a lot more in them. Give case studies where you walk through exactly what you did with a company and how you're able to help them in a lot of different areas. Do you want to freelance? Then you need to show intention. You want to make the portfolio that speaks to business owners in whatever niche you want to work in. You don't need to only have one specific type of project, but you do need to give more backstory and thought process about how you tackled the project, what the problems were and how you solved them, what you offered to someone, and assume that the person looking at your portfolio is in a totally different industry and probably not a design person. You want to guide them through and show how working with you takes all of that off their plate and makes it really easy for them. Are you wanting to be a creator who makes stuff? Then you need to show style. Give a feel for your unique style and taste and signature. Show the world that you create with your pieces. You want to tailor your portfolio to showcase your current body of work that could be licensed or commissioned, so that someone who's wanting to hire you to do a piece or license some of your work can see exactly what you're currently working on, exactly what that could look like for them, and then make it really easy for them to fill out a licensing form. And don't just show the pieces, show them a mock-up so they can envision what your work could look like in a magazine or on a mural or on a t-shirt. You're going to be really focusing on showing the vibe of what you make and how it can exist in the real world. Basically, every project shows off some kind of skill set, and the skill sets that you want to show depend on the end goal that you have. So knowing what you want your portfolio to do for you is really going to help you narrow down exactly what you need to work on. Maybe it's about just gathering together the work that you currently have and representing it in the best way. Maybe you have some gaps to fill and you need to add in some new pieces. This will help you know. Now you can take stock of your work. Look at what you currently have and think about how you can present it in a way that most speaks to that end goal. Do you want to flesh it out on mock-ups or write a write-up of what the problem was that you solved? Get a quote from a past client so you can show how happy they were with the end result or how statistically it helped their business. Maybe you realize that there are some holes in your portfolio. Guilty. Maybe there are some things that you want to get work for that you don't really have a lot of representation for. This is where passion projects come in. Start making a list of the kinds of work that you want to make so you can fill in this portfolio and fill in gaps to really represent what you want to do. Work begets work. So take this time to actually make the stuff that you want to continue being hired for. That's honestly the hardest part of the whole portfolio process, is what do you want to represent you? Finally, you've got to think about the other parts of your portfolio too. How does someone work with you? Can someone easily understand your process and what might be unique about it? What specific services do you offer? Do you want to give packages that break down different offerings? Do you want to list pricing on your website? There's pros and cons to this that can kind of go either way. No matter what, you want to make it as easy for someone to get in touch with you to do the thing you want them to do as humanly possible. And then there's your about page, which also kind of needs to change depending on what your goal is. If you want to get hired, then you can kind of treat your about page as a CV and a kind of a friendlier style. You want to give the bullet points of your resume so someone can quickly scan who you are, where you've been, what you've done, and kind of get a gist of who you are without needing to actually go point by point on your resume. If you're wanting to attract clients, then the about page kind of needs to be about them. What their needs are, what their pain points are, and why you are the specific person who can solve them. If you're wanting to license or commission work, then you want to get a sense of your personality so that someone can get a sense of who you are as an artist and why they want to showcase you. And that's pretty much it. The more that you can really zone in on what your specific goal is for your portfolio, the more you can release this idea that it has to be this sort of nebulous representation of everything that you are as a creative person. And the more clear it is that you are just offering a specific set of things to a specific type of person. And it's not really for everyone else on the internet to see and judge. And that is so freeing. If this is bubbling up a bunch of fresh inspiration for you to work on your portfolio, I just did a video with a whole bunch of ideas for passion projects that can help you fill in the gaps in your portfolio. So go watch that one next so you can get some fresh ideas. See you there.